Maria Santos stepped off the military transport bus wearing her grandmother's old combat boots. The leather was cracked and faded, held together with duct tape and determination. Around her, the other recruits at Fort Benning wore pristine new boots, their laces perfectly aligned and their confidence radiating like armor. "Look at those things," whispered Private Jenkins, loud enough for half the platoon to hear.
"Did she dig them up from a museum?" The laughter that followed cut through Maria like a knife.
She had heard worse before. Growing up in East Los Angeles, being the daughter of undocumented immigrants, she had faced mockery about her second-hand clothes, her accent, and her family's struggles.
But this felt different.
This was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to prove herself in the United States Army. Drill Sergeant Rodriguez, a mountain of a man with eyes like steel, noticed the commotion. He walked over slowly, his own boots clicking against the concrete with military precision. Maria braced herself for another humiliation. "Santos," he barked, "explain those boots."
Maria's throat felt dry.
She could feel every eye in the platoon boring into her. The truth seemed pathetic when spoken aloud, but it was all she had. "They belonged to my grandmother, Sergeant. She served in the Mexican military before coming to America. When my parents couldn't afford new boots for basic training, she gave me these. She said they would bring me luck." More snickers rippled through the group. Someone behind her muttered something about charity cases and lowered standards. Drill Sergeant Rodriguez examined the boots more closely. Despite their worn appearance, Maria had spent hours cleaning and conditioning the leather. She had replaced the insoles and reinforced the weak spots with careful stitching. The boots might look ancient, but they were functional and well-maintained. "These boots have seen more action than most of you will see in your entire careers," Rodriguez announced to the platoon.
"Santos, you'll do just fine in those.
The rest of you, quit worrying about fashion and start worrying about whether you have what it takes to earn the right to wear any boots in this army." Despite the sergeant's words, the damage was done.
Maria had been marked as different, as less than.
During the following weeks of basic training, she found herself constantly having to prove herself. When other recruits struggled with a task, it was seen as normal. When Maria struggled, even briefly, the whispers would start again about standards being lowered and special treatment. The physical training was brutal, but Maria had been working since she was 12 years old. She had cleaned office buildings at night to help her family pay rent. She had carried heavy boxes in warehouses during summer breaks. Her grandmother's boots carried her through every morning run, every obstacle course, every grueling exercise that the drill sergeants could devise. During weapons training, Maria discovered she had a natural talent for marksmanship.
Her steady hands, developed through years of detailed cleaning work, translated perfectly to handling firearms.
While other recruits struggled to hit targets at basic distances, Maria was consistently placing shots in tight groupings at extended ranges. "Santos," called out Sergeant Williams, the marksmanship instructor, "where did you learn to shoot like that?"
"My uncle taught me, Sergeant. He took me hunting in Mexico when I was young.
We only had one bullet per trip, so missing meant no food for dinner." Some of the other recruits began to show grudging respect for her skills, but others seemed to resent her success even more. Private Miller, a college graduate from Connecticut, made it his personal mission to undermine Maria whenever possible. "It's not fair," he complained to anyone who would listen. "She probably grew up around guns and violence.
Of course she's good at shooting. That doesn't make her a real soldier."
The comments hurt, but Maria had learned long ago to channel pain into determination. Every insult became fuel for her training. Every skeptical look motivated her to work harder. Her grandmother's boots became a symbol of her resolve, a reminder that she came from a line of fighters who never gave up. During a particularly challenging field exercise, Maria's squad was tasked with navigating through difficult terrain while carrying full packs and equipment. The route included several creek crossings, steep hills, and dense vegetation. Many of the recruits with their expensive new boots struggled with traction and comfort as the hours wore on. Maria's old boots, broken in by years of wear and perfectly molded to her feet, gave her an advantage. She moved through the terrain with confidence, never slipping on wet rocks or developing painful blisters that slowed down several of her squad mates. When her squad finished the exercise in record time, Drill Sergeant Rodriguez made a point of acknowledging their performance in front of the entire company.
"Santos's squad completed the course faster than any group I've seen in 3 years," he announced.
They worked as a team, supported each other, and never quit.
That's what being a soldier means. But, instead of celebration, Maria noticed more resentment building among some of the other recruits.
Success, she was learning, could be just as isolating as failure when you were seen as an outsider. The final weeks of basic training included evaluation exercises that would determine each recruit's military occupational specialty. Maria scored at the top of her class in multiple areas, including physical fitness, weapons proficiency, and tactical knowledge. Her instructors began discussing advanced training opportunities that could lead to specialized units. Yet even as she excelled, Maria could feel the weight of expectations and suspicions bearing down on her. Some people seemed determined to find explanations for her success that had nothing to do with her own merit and hard work. The night before graduation, Maria sat alone in the barracks, carefully polishing her grandmother's boots one more time. Tomorrow she would receive her orders and begin the next phase of her military career. But tonight, she reflected on how far she had come and how much further she still had to go. Private Jenkins, who had made the first cruel comment about her boots, approached her bunk.
Maria tensed, expecting another confrontation.
"Santos," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology.
I was wrong about you. About the boots. About everything."
Maria looked up, surprised by the sincerity in his voice.
"You've earned respect the hard way," Jenkins continued.
"I hope I get the chance to serve alongside you again someday."
"You're going to be an outstanding soldier." As graduation day dawned, Maria laced up her grandmother's boots one final time as a basic trainee.
She had survived the initial mockery and proved herself worthy of wearing the uniform. But she knew this was only the beginning of her journey. The ceremony was filled with proud families and fresh-faced soldiers ready to serve their country.
Maria's parents had driven from Los Angeles, their first time ever on a military base.
Her grandmother, now in her 80s, sat in the front row wearing a dress she had saved for special occasions. When Maria's name was called for academic excellence and leadership awards, she walked across the stage with confidence. Her boots might have been old and patched, but they had carried her to this moment of triumph. The scattered applause from the audience seemed to acknowledge not just her achievements, but the determination it had taken to reach this point despite the odds stacked against her. After the ceremony, Drill Sergeant Rodriguez approached Maria and her family. He shook her grandmother's hand with deep respect. "Ma'am," he said in careful Spanish, "your granddaughter is going to make you very proud. She has the heart of a warrior." Maria's grandmother smiled and replied in English, "I already knew this. The boots told me she was ready." As Maria prepared to leave Fort Benning for advanced individual training, she felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. She had proven herself in basic training, but the real test was yet to come. The Army was vast and complex, with its own hierarchies and prejudices that would challenge her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Her grandmother's boots had gotten her this far, but the journey ahead would demand everything she had learned about perseverance, courage, and believing in herself when others did not. The mockery and doubt she had faced in basic training had only strengthened her resolve to succeed, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. Standing at the bus stop with her duffel bag and her dreams, Maria Santos was no longer the uncertain recruit who had arrived months earlier. She was a soldier, trained and ready to serve. And her grandmother's boots, worn and weathered but still strong, would carry her forward into whatever challenges awaited. Advanced individual training at Fort Sam Houston brought new challenges and familiar prejudices. Maria had been selected for combat medic training, a demanding program that would prepare her to save lives on the battlefield. The selection was based purely on her test scores and aptitude, but some of her fellow trainees questioned whether she truly belonged in such a critical role.
"Combat medics have to make life and death decisions under pressure," said Specialist Hayes during orientation. "Are we really going to trust that to someone who couldn't even afford proper boots?" The comment stung, but Maria had learned to transform doubt into determination.
She threw herself into her medical training with the same intensity she had applied to basic training. Anatomy, physiology, trauma care, emergency procedures, she absorbed every lesson with laser focus. Her grandmother's boots continued to draw attention and whispers, but Maria refused to be ashamed of them. They had carried her through basic training, and they would carry her through this next challenge. She kept them meticulously maintained, replacing worn laces and conditioning the leather regularly. The medical training was intense and unforgiving. Students had to master complex procedures under simulated combat conditions, with instructors creating scenarios designed to test their knowledge, reflexes, and composure. Maria discovered that her background had given her advantages that her middle-class classmates lacked. Years of watching her mother work as a home health aide had exposed Maria to medical procedures and patient care. The poverty of her childhood had taught her to think quickly and creatively when resources were limited. While other trainees panicked when equipment malfunctioned or supplies ran low, Maria adapted and improvised. During a particularly challenging simulation, Maria's team was tasked with treating multiple casualties in a mock combat zone. Smoke filled the training area, instructors shouted confusing orders, and several of the mock patients had complex injuries requiring immediate attention. While her teammates struggled to organize their response, Maria quickly triaged the casualties, prioritizing treatment based on severity and likelihood of survival. Her steady hands and calm demeanor allowed her to perform procedures that other students found overwhelming in the chaotic environment. Outstanding work, Santos, called out Sergeant First Class Johnson, the senior instructor. You just saved 3 lives while maintaining unit effectiveness. That's exactly what we need from our combat medics. The praise felt good, but Maria knew it came with a price. Success made her more visible, which meant more scrutiny and more opportunities for others to find fault with her performance or question her qualifications. During field training exercises, Maria's squad was assigned to support an infantry unit conducting patrol operations. The exercise was designed to simulate conditions in Afghanistan, where combat medics might need to provide medical support while under enemy fire. The training scenario required long marches through difficult terrain, carrying full medical equipment in addition to personal gear. Many of the newer trainees struggled with blisters and foot problems as their expensive boots failed to provide adequate support during extended operations. Maria's grandmother's boots, thoroughly broken in and perfectly fitted to her feet, allowed her to move comfortably even during the longest patrols. While others limped and complained, she maintained her pace and focus, ready to respond to medical emergencies at a moment's notice. During one particularly realistic exercise, a fellow trainee playing the role of a wounded soldier began experiencing genuine medical distress. The combination of heat, dehydration, and stress had caused him to collapse, and what had started as acting became a real emergency. Maria immediately recognized the signs of heat exhaustion progressing toward heatstroke. She quickly moved to stabilize the patient, establishing an airway, checking vital signs, and beginning cooling procedures. Her training kicked in automatically, but it was her natural compassion and calm under pressure that made the real difference. "Get me ice packs and start in 4, she called to her teammates while loosening the patient's clothing and moving him to shade. "And call for real medical support. This isn't part of the exercise anymore." Her quick thinking and skilled intervention prevented what could have been a serious medical emergency. The trainee made a full recovery, and word of Maria's performance spread throughout the training company. Captain Morris, the company commander, called Maria into his office the next day. She expected recognition for her actions, but the conversation took an unexpected turn. "Santos, I've been watching your performance throughout this training cycle," the captain began. "You're technically proficient, you work well under pressure, and you clearly care about your fellow soldiers. But I have to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Maria was puzzled by the question. "Sir, I want to serve wherever the army needs me. I want to be the best combat medic I can be." Captain Morris leaned forward. "Have you considered applying for special operations? The Rangers and Special Forces are always looking for qualified medics, and your scores suggest you might have what it takes for that level of training." The suggestion was both thrilling and terrifying. Special operations represented the elite of the military, units that operated in the most dangerous and challenging environments. It would mean more training, higher standards, and even greater scrutiny of her background and qualifications.
"Sir, do you really think I'm ready for something like that?" Maria asked.
"Readiness isn't just about test scores," Captain Morris replied. "It's about character, determination, and the ability to perform under pressure. You've demonstrated all of those qualities. The question is whether you're willing to push yourself even further." That evening, Maria called her grandmother to discuss the opportunity. Her abuela had been her source of strength and wisdom throughout her military journey, and this decision felt too important to make alone. "Mija," her grandmother said in her gentle voice, "remember what I told you about those boots? They have walked through difficult places and survived. They will take you wherever you need to go. But the strength to walk comes from inside you, not from the boots." The conversation crystallized something for Maria. She had spent so much time proving herself to others that she had forgotten to trust in her own abilities. The mockery about her boots had initially made her defensive, but it had also motivated her to excel. Now she needed to decide whether to pursue excellence for its own sake, regardless of what others might think. The final weeks of combat medic training included comprehensive examinations and practical evaluations. Maria scored in the top 5% of her class, earning recognition as the outstanding graduate of her training cycle. The achievement came with eligibility for advanced training opportunities and preferential assignment choices. During the graduation ceremony, Maria's parents again made the long trip to witness their daughter's success. This time, they brought Maria's younger brother, who had been inspired by her example to consider military service himself. As Maria received her combat medic badge and honor graduate award, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The old boots that had once been a source of embarrassment had become a symbol of her heritage and determination. They represented the sacrifices of previous generations and the possibilities of the future. After graduation, Maria submitted her application for Special Forces medical training. The selection process would be grueling, and the failure rate was high, but she felt ready for the challenge. Her grandmother's boots had carried her through basic training and medical school. Now they would carry her toward the ultimate test of her abilities and character. The night before departing for her next assignment, Maria sat alone in her barracks room, polishing her boots one final time. Tomorrow she would begin the journey toward special operations, a path that few soldiers ever had the opportunity to attempt. The boots had taken her further than she had ever imagined possible when she first laced them up at Fort Benning. As she worked the leather conditioner into the worn material, Maria reflected on how much she had changed since those early days when other recruits mocked her footwear. She had proven herself repeatedly, but, more importantly, she had learned to believe in herself. The doubt and skepticism of others no longer had the power to shake her confidence. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Private Jenkins, her former basic training classmate who had apologized for his initial mockery. He was now serving in Korea and had heard about her medical training success. "Congratulations on honor graduate," his message read. "I told everyone here about the soldier with the magic boots who never gives up. You're making all of us proud." Maria smiled as she read the message. The magic boots comment would have hurt her feelings months ago, but now she understood that respect had to be earned through actions, not appearance. Her grandmother's boots had never been about magic, they were about the determination to keep walking forward, no matter how difficult the path became. As she prepared for sleep, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension about the challenges ahead. Special Forces training would test every skill she had learned and every ounce of mental toughness she could summon. Many highly qualified soldiers failed to complete the program, and she would face additional scrutiny as one of the few women attempting the training. But her grandmother's boots had never failed her yet. They had carried her through poverty, discrimination, and self-doubt. They had supported her during the longest marches and the most demanding training exercises. Tomorrow they would begin carrying her toward a goal that had once seemed impossible for a girl from East Los Angeles whose family couldn't afford new equipment. The path ahead would be difficult, but Maria Santos was no longer the uncertain recruit who had stepped off the bus at Fort Benning. She was a trained soldier, a skilled medic, and a young woman who had learned that true strength comes from refusing to give up, regardless of what obstacles stand in the way. The Special Forces Assessment and Selection course at Fort Bragg was designed to break soldiers mentally and physically. Only 20% of candidates typically completed the program, and Maria knew she would face additional challenges as one of only 3 women in her class of 47 candidates. The first day began before dawn with a physical fitness assessment that exceeded the standards for regular Army units. Maria's grandmother's boots, now reinforced with new soles but still bearing the scars of countless training exercises, carried her through the demanding run and obstacle course with familiar reliability. Santos called Master Sergeant Williams, the senior instructor. "I see you're still wearing those museum pieces. You sure they're going to hold up to what we're about to put you through?" "Roger, Sergeant," Maria replied confidently.
"These boots have never let me down."
Williams examined the worn leather and expert repairs.
"Fair enough. But understand that everyone starts equal here. Your past performance doesn't matter. Your gender doesn't matter. Your background doesn't matter.
All that matters is whether you can meet our standards and function as part of an elite team."
The assessment phase was brutal and unrelenting.
Candidates endured sleep deprivation, extreme physical challenges, and psychological pressure designed to identify those with the mental resilience necessary for special operations. Many highly qualified soldiers voluntarily withdrew or were eliminated within the first week. Maria's background of overcoming adversity served her well during the most challenging phases of training. While other candidates struggled with the uncertainty and stress, she drew upon years of experience dealing with difficult circumstances. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory during the darkest moments. "The boots will take you where you need to go, but the strength to walk comes from inside." During a particularly grueling navigation exercise, candidates were required to find multiple checkpoints across 50 miles of difficult terrain while carrying heavy packs and operating on minimal sleep. Many of the candidates, despite their impressive military records, had never experienced such sustained physical and mental stress. Maria's old boots provided crucial advantages during the long march. While other candidates developed serious foot problems with their newer footwear, her perfectly broken-in boots moved with her feet like a second skin. She arrived at each checkpoint ahead of schedule and in better condition than most of her peers. At one remote checkpoint, Maria discovered a fellow candidate who had collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. The instructor observing the checkpoint made it clear that helping others was optional, but failure to reach the final destination within the time limit would result in elimination from the program. Without hesitation, Maria shared her water and helped stabilize the struggling candidate. She provided encouragement and paced him for the remaining distance, ensuring they both reached the final checkpoint within the required timeframe. Her medical training and natural compassion had overcome the competitive instincts that drove many special operations selections. "Interesting choice, Santos," observed Colonel Patterson, the course director, as she submitted her navigation report. "You could have reached the objective faster without helping candidate Morrison. What made you decide to potentially risk your own success?" "Sir, the mission was to reach the checkpoint, but the bigger mission is to identify soldiers who can function in special operations teams," Maria replied.
"In real combat, we don't leave people behind, regardless of the personal cost."
Colonel Patterson nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need in special forces. Technical skills can be taught, but character and judgment under pressure cannot be trained into someone who doesn't already possess them." As the weeks progressed, Maria's reputation among the candidates and instructors continued to grow. Her performance was consistently excellent, but it was her leadership and teamwork that truly distinguished her from the other high performers in the class. During a complex team exercise requiring candidates to plan and execute a mock rescue mission, Maria was selected as the medical team leader. The scenario involved multiple casualties in a hostile environment, with limited resources and time constraints that would challenge even experienced special operations teams. Maria's medical expertise and calm leadership helped coordinate a successful mission that impressed even the most critical instructors. Her ability to make quick decisions under pressure, combined with her technical competence and concern for her teammates, demonstrated the qualities that special operations commanders valued most. "Santos has the complete package," Master Sergeant Williams reported to Colonel Patterson. "Technical proficiency, physical toughness, mental resilience, and natural leadership ability. More importantly, she's shown consistent character and judgment throughout the course. I recommend her for selection without reservation." The final phase of the assessment included individual psychological evaluations designed to identify any personality traits or mental health issues that might interfere with special operations duty. Maria's interviews revealed the same determination and balanced perspective that had characterized her performance throughout the course. When the selection results were announced, only 9 of the original 47 candidates had successfully completed the program. Maria's name was called third, a recognition of her outstanding performance throughout the demanding assessment period. The graduation ceremony was smaller and more subdued than her previous military achievements. Special Forces selection was just the beginning of an even more challenging training pipeline that would last another year. But, for Maria, wearing her grandmother's boots as she received her selection certificate, the moment represented validation of everything she had worked toward. Her family couldn't attend the ceremony due to the classified nature of the training, but Maria called her grandmother immediately after the event to share the news. "Abuela, I did it. I was selected for Special Forces training. They think I have what it takes to serve in the most elite units in the Army." Her grandmother's voice was filled with pride and emotion. "Mija, I always knew this day would come. The boots have taken you exactly where you were meant to go. But, remember, this is just the beginning. The real test is still ahead of you." The conversation reminded Maria that selection was indeed just the first step. The Special Forces qualification course would be even more demanding, requiring her to master advanced combat skills, foreign languages, and specialized techniques used by Green Beret teams around the world. As she prepared for the next phase of training, Maria reflected on how far she had traveled from that first day at Fort Benning when other recruits mocked her footwear. The same boots that had once been a source of embarrassment had carried her through basic training, medical school, and one of the most selective processes in the military. The night before beginning Special Forces training, Maria carefully cleaned and conditioned her boots one more time. The leather was now soft and supple from years of wear, molded perfectly to her feet and bearing the marks of countless miles and challenges. They had become more than just footwear, they were a tangible connection to her heritage and a symbol of her determination to succeed regardless of the obstacles in her path. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove herself. The Special Forces qualification course would test every skill she had learned and push her beyond limits she didn't yet know she possessed. But Maria Santos was no longer the uncertain young woman who had worried about fitting in with her fellow soldiers. She had learned to trust in her own abilities, to lead by example, and to find strength in the very experiences that others might view as disadvantages. Her grandmother's boots had carried her to heights that once seemed impossible, but the journey they had shared was far from over. The path ahead would lead to specialized training in combat, languages, and the complex skills required for unconventional warfare. If she succeeded, she would become one of the Army's most elite soldiers, capable of operating in the most dangerous and challenging environments around the world. But success would also bring new responsibilities and new risks. Special Forces soldiers deploy to the most dangerous locations and face threats that most people could barely imagine. The boots that had carried her through training exercises would soon carry her into real combat, where the skills she was learning would mean the difference between life and death. As Maria drifted off to sleep, she thought about all the people who had doubted her along the way. The fellow recruits who mocked her boots, the instructors who questioned her qualifications, and the officers who wondered if she belonged in elite units. Their skepticism had motivated her to excel, but now she no longer needed external validation to fuel her determination. She had proven herself repeatedly, not just to others but to herself. The young woman who would begin Special Forces training tomorrow was confident, capable, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Her grandmother's boots would carry her forward, as they always had, one step at a time toward whatever destiny awaited. 3 years later, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos stood in the Afghan mountains wearing her grandmother's boots, now bearing the distinctive green beret of the Special Forces. The worn leather had been carefully maintained through countless missions, advanced training, and deployments to some of the world's most dangerous locations. Her team was conducting a medical mission in a remote village that had been cut off from aid for months due to Taliban activity in the region. As the team's senior medic and only female member, Maria had been specifically requested for this mission because the local women would only accept medical care from another woman. The village elder, a weathered man named Mahmoud, had initially been skeptical about accepting help from American forces. But, when he saw Maria's gentle competence with his sick daughter and her respect for local customs, his attitude began to change. "You are not like the other soldiers," Mahmoud observed through their interpreter. "You understand that healing requires more than just medicine." Maria smiled as she administered antibiotics to a young mother suffering from a serious infection. "My grandmother taught me that caring for people is a sacred responsibility. It doesn't matter where you come from or what language you speak, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity." Her team's mission was proceeding smoothly when intelligence reports indicated a large Taliban force was moving toward their location. The original extraction plan was compromised, and the team faced the possibility of being surrounded in hostile territory. Captain Rodriguez, Maria's team leader, gathered the squad for an emergency briefing. "We have two choices. We can try to extract immediately and leave these people vulnerable to Taliban retaliation, or we can stay and defend the village until reinforcements arrive. It's going to be dangerous either way." The decision was unanimous. The team would stay and defend the village, despite being outnumbered and operating without immediate backup. Maria spent the remaining daylight hours treating as many patients as possible while helping to prepare defensive positions. As darkness fell, the Taliban attack began with mortar rounds and small arms fire. The village erupted in chaos as families sought shelter and the Special Forces team responded to contact from multiple directions. Maria's position was in the village medical clinic, where she continued treating patients while monitoring radio communications for casualty reports. The first wounded soldier was Sergeant Johnson, Maria's longtime teammate who had taken shrapnel from an improvised explosive device. Despite the ongoing firefight around them, Maria worked calmly to stabilize his wounds and prepare him for evacuation. "Santos, you need to get to the eastern perimeter," Captain Rodriguez called over the radio. "We have multiple casualties and need immediate medical attention." Maria grabbed her medical bag and sprinted through the darkened village streets, dodging incoming fire while navigating by memory and instinct. Her grandmother's boots gripped the rocky terrain with familiar confidence, carrying her safely through the dangerous sprint to the endangered position. At the eastern defensive line, she found 2 Afghan soldiers and 1 American specialist seriously wounded. The Taliban fighters had gotten close enough to throw grenades, and the defenders were pinned down by accurate sniper fire. Working under fire, Maria treated the most critical wounds first, using her body to shield the patients from incoming rounds. Her calm competence under extreme pressure inspired the other defenders and helped maintain their fighting spirit during the most dangerous phase of the battle. "I need covering fire to move these casualties," Maria called to the team leader at that position. "Johnson can walk, but the other 2 need to be carried." Sergeant Williams organized a covering fire team while Maria prepared the wounded for movement. The evacuation required crossing 50 meters of open ground while under direct enemy observation, but staying in their current position would likely result in additional casualties. "On my mark," Maria announced, lifting the most severely wounded patient. 3, 2, 1, move. The team provided suppressing fire while Maria and 2 other soldiers moved the casualties to safety. Her grandmother's boots found secure footing on the treacherous terrain, allowing her to maintain her balance while carrying a wounded soldier who outweighed her by 40 pounds. The firefight continued through the night, with Maria moving between defensive positions to treat wounded fighters and coordinate medical evacuations. Her medical expertise and calm leadership under fire became crucial to maintaining the defense as casualties mounted and ammunition ran low. During a brief lull in the fighting, Maria discovered that several village children had been trapped in a collapsed building hit by mortar fire. Despite the ongoing danger, she immediately organized a rescue effort, using her medical training to assess the victims and coordinate their evacuation. "Santos, we can't spare anyone for a rescue mission right now," Captain Rodriguez warned over the radio. "We're barely holding our perimeters as it is." "Sir, there are children trapped in there," Maria replied firmly. "I can handle this with 2 volunteers. We can't just leave them." Working with remarkable efficiency despite the ongoing battle, Maria's small rescue team freed all the trapped children and transferred them to the medical clinic. Several required immediate surgery that was beyond the capabilities of field medicine, but her quick action prevented what would have been multiple fatalities. As dawn approached, Apache helicopters arrived to provide close air support, and the Taliban forces began withdrawing to avoid the devastating firepower of the aircraft. The immediate crisis was over, but the village had been badly damaged and many people were wounded or homeless. Maria spent the following days coordinating medical care and humanitarian assistance for the villagers while helping to document the aftermath of the battle. Her combination of medical expertise, cultural sensitivity, and leadership ability made her invaluable during the recovery phase. When the mission finally concluded, Captain Rodriguez submitted a detailed report praising Maria's performance under fire. Her actions during the battle had saved multiple American and Afghan lives while demonstrating the highest levels of courage and competence under extreme pressure. Staff Sergeant Santos performed with extraordinary heroism during sustained combat operations, the report stated. Her medical expertise, tactical awareness, and selfless service under fire were directly responsible for saving numerous lives and maintaining unit cohesion during the most critical phases of the engagement. The recommendation that accompanied the report was for the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for military valor. The nomination would require extensive investigation and review, but Captain Rodriguez believed Maria's actions clearly met the criteria for the prestigious recognition. 6 months later, Maria stood in the Rose Garden of the White House, still wearing her grandmother's boots beneath her dress uniform. Her family sat in the front row, including her grandmother, who had lived to see her granddaughter receive the nation's highest honor for military service. President Johnson approached Maria with the distinctive blue ribbon and star-shaped medal that represented the pinnacle of military recognition. The ceremony was being broadcast live, and Maria knew that millions of people were watching, including many who might be inspired by her example. Staff Sergeant Santos, the president announced, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a Special Forces medic in Afghanistan, I present you with the Medal of Honor." As the medal was placed around her neck, Maria thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. From the mockery she faced during basic training to the intense challenges of Special Forces selection, every step had prepared her for the night when her skills and courage would be tested in the ultimate way. During the reception following the ceremony, Maria was approached by a young Latina girl who had attended with her military family. The girl's eyes were wide with admiration and excitement. "Miss Santos, I want to be a soldier like you when I grow up," the girl said shyly. "Do you think I can do it even if my family doesn't have much money?" Maria knelt down to the girl's level, thinking about her own childhood dreams and the obstacles she had overcome. What matters isn't how much money your family has or what other people think about you. What matters is how hard you're willing to work and how much you believe in yourself. She pointed to her boots, still visible beneath her dress uniform. "These boots belong to my grandmother, and they've carried me further than I ever imagined possible." Sometimes the things that make us different are actually our greatest strengths. As the evening concluded, Maria called her grandmother from her hotel room to thank her for the inspiration and support that had made everything possible. "Abuela, I wish you could have seen the ceremony. The president said I brought honor to my family and my country." Her grandmother's voice was filled with pride and emotion. "Mija, I always knew you would do great things. The boots just carried you there, but the courage and determination came from your own heart. Now you must use this honor to help others find their own path to greatness." The conversation reminded Maria that receiving the Medal of Honor was both an ending and a beginning. It represented recognition for past service, but it also created new responsibilities to serve as an example and inspiration for others who might follow similar paths. Years later, when young soldiers asked Maria about the secret to her success, she would always point to her grandmother's boots, still carefully maintained and still serving faithfully after decades of wear. The boots had never been about magic or luck, she would explain.
They represented the determination to keep moving forward, one step at a time, regardless of the obstacles or skepticism that might block the path. The Medal of Honor ceremony had been broadcast around the world, and many viewers commented on the contrast between Maria's prestigious award and her well-worn boots. But, for those who understood her journey, the boots were the perfect symbol of her achievement, humble beginnings transformed through determination and service into something truly extraordinary. Maria Santos had proven that excellence comes not from expensive equipment or privileged backgrounds, but from character, dedication, and the refusal to give up when others doubt your potential. Her grandmother's boots had carried her from poverty to the pinnacle of military recognition, and they stood ready to carry her forward into whatever challenges the future might bring. The young woman who had once been mocked for her footwear had become a symbol of American excellence and determination, proving that the most important equipment any soldier carries is the strength and courage that comes from within.